Hello everyone, this is my part 2 to my Mario Superstar baseball tier list. This is going to be mainly talking about the low tiers and kind of just, I'm going to be a little bit more brief on each character. I'm not going to explain as much as I did earlier. Um, but yeah, if you haven't checked it out, go check out part 1. And yeah, so moving into the low meta. These are characters where they're viable. I think they're going to be picked most games, but they're kind of not really the most important to your team. They're not. They're characters that aren't weaknesses to your team. Really, they're characters that you know you have them. And you're like, oh, okay, I have them, but they're not like meta defining. They're kind of like I said, low meta. They're very viable. These characters are probably picking most games. Eh, probably some games. There's a mix between the two, but they're solid. They're solid. And starting off with the idea of being solid, let's see character that represents that, and then it's Mario. Um, this character in the outfield is great. This character in the outfield is pretty solid. His hitbox is okay. It's pretty big, but he's got that weird like shutter step thing. So if you're missing by a decent amount, he'll kind of cover for you. His dive is pretty okay. His dive, it's not the worst in the world. It's solid. His bat is pretty good. It's not like a consistent hit like I've talked about earlier with the Star Swingers, like how important that is. But it's pretty. It's a very good singles bat. Like you're gonna get on a decent amount of time. Um, and so yeah, he's just kind of the epitome. Decent outfielder, decent bat. He's not gonna win you games. He's gonna get you hit sometimes. Yeah, he's just a pretty okay character. Um, moving on, we got Dry Bones. Now, this character's kind of weird because you know he does have that strength of having a star swing. The star swing, that's pretty good. However, his bat is a little too short for my liking to use that star swing consistently. I It's a little hard. I think his star swing is probably the worst of all of them, just because of how short the bat is. You could maybe argue others are worse, but his bat being that short kind of hinders him a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of his singles hit. Now, it's still pretty good, but I've seen people say it's like Toadsworth here, which I just don't agree with. I think if sometimes you hit good contact and the ball will just roll on the ground and be a grounder, even if you kind of do it perfectly. So I don't know. His bat doesn't seem the best to me. His bat is still pretty good though. Don't get me wrong. His bat is still pretty good. And him having a star swing alone is still very, very solid. Like I'm talking about why I think he's at this place, but this is coming from the perspective where people have him a lot higher. People could have him like around this range, and I kind of don't see that, but he's still a pretty good character. Outfielding, you're gonna put him in the outfielder as an outfielder. You're probably not putting him anywhere else unless you're putting him at catcher or first. No, you're not putting him only catcher or outfield. And as an outfielder, his arm really long windup is a little annoying sometimes. It can let runners go from second to third, especially if you have him right field, which you probably shouldn't. You probably have him center. Um, and even then, his speed is not that great. His range is not that great. You can hide him. You can definitely hide him, but he can be exploited a little bit. It's weird. I think having a star swing alone puts him up here. His singles bat is pretty good. His outfielding is scary. I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. But having that star swing, I think, puts him up here around this location. Definitely worse, in my opinion, than the other star swingers, but still a star swing. So still, I think low meta is perfect for him because he should probably be picked every single game, just not a priority. That makes sense. Moving on, we got Diddy Kong. This character is also weird. Um, and also I'm gonna group in. I think these two. I'm putting these two basically at the same spot. If I had to pick one, I'd pick Diddy. Both are pretty good. Both are your ninth pick pitchers. These characters are pretty solid pitchers. In fact, really really good pitchers. Like second and third best in the game. Um, they're pretty scary to face off against. They're only like barely worse than Boo. So they're still pretty viable. Their bats, I might lean towards putting Dixie above. Dixie's bat is not good. It is not good. But you can get hits with it. Diddy's bat is worse. Diddy's bat is not good. Like, it's like bottom 5, bottom 10 in my opinion. But it's okay. Their pitching makes up for it, and if you it's well more worthwhile to get a pitcher that can't hit than get a worse pitcher that can hit, in my opinion. So this is why these characters I think are low meta. It's kind of weird having them both in low meta because you usually don't see both these characters picked in the same game. Maybe you do sometimes if you're trying to like get sabotage or whatever, but generally you don't. So it's kind of hard. But these characters are in low meta in my opinion. I'd say Mario and Dry Bones are going to be ahead of these next characters coming up. The next character we got is Toadette. Wait, why is this not working? Oh, what the heck? Okay, there we go. Okay, we got Toadette. This is another character where I don't think you're going to see this character every single game. I don't think this character needs to be picked every single game. However, that 9 speed, that nice speed, that nice coverage out in the outfield, pretty good. It's not Yoshi tier, but it's ahead of most other characters. It's second best in the game. Yoshi's still a decent amount above, but still, this character covering that outfield, that stops a lot of singles from happening from these lower tier singles hit, like from these characters that rely on single hitting. The Toadette kind of makes that a lot harder for those characters, which adds stars and to your team and removes stars from the other team, like I said earlier with Yoshi. And so I think this character is pretty good. I do not like this bat at all. I don't think this bat is very good. Like I said earlier, I think you have Yoshi or Birdo on this team. It makes it a lot harder to hit with Toadette because you just need to put. Now the thing is with Toadette that's better than what I talked about with Pink Menace is that you can push or pull with Toadette, whereas with Pink Menace, you kind of only have to pull. So it doesn't you need both to really shut her down. But I think Yoshi especially kind of shuts down half of the field for Toadette. And you're probably not having both on the same team. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant to put Toadette any higher. But I mean, again, so that fielding is really good. And the next character we have, I think this character's really underrated. We got Luigi. These two characters, I think, are the same spot. These two characters fill the same role of an outfielder with your 9th pick. These characters, this character's slightly worse in the field, has a slightly better bat. That's kind of the difference between two. Both have wall jump, so both are pretty solid outfielders, I won't lie. Like, these characters you're happy to have in your outfielder. I just think Luigi's bat is still very solid. Like, Luigi's bat is, again, it's still a singles hit bat. You're not going to get a hit every single time with that character. But you're going to get hits a lot more, and it's something I think you can rely on a little bit more than Toadette's. In fact, I think a lot more than Toadette's. Personally, if I had to come down to myself, I would pick Luigi over Toadette 90% of the time, unless I really needed to replace a bad outfielder. But I think these characters are preference pick between the two of which you like more. And yeah, that's basically it. That's where I think these characters are at. And next we have these borderline meta characters. That is the end of the low meta. I kind of said earlier that oh my god, I kind of said earlier that these characters were gonna be like the characters that you pick every game, but these characters are kind of your you're not going to see these characters every game. You're going to see these characters a decent amount. So next, we have Borderline Meta, where these are the characters you're going to see every once in a while. You're not going to see these characters very much, but you might see them occasionally. And this first character, I think, is a perfect representation. We got Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. is weird because his outfielding, or his field, you're going to put him in the outfielder, and his fielding isn't the best. He's got wall jump, decent speed, okay dive. His bat is pretty okay. It's a singles bat. It's not something you can rely on consistently, but it can still get you hits pretty oftenly. The thing is, his chemistry tree is so busted. He is Bro and Bowser chemistry. You have both these characters on the same team, you're gonna pick Bowser Jr. because If you can get a hit with him, what the heck do? You get Bowser Jr. into Bowser into Bro. You get a hit with Bowser Jr., Bowser with 110% chemistry tree, you're going to walk. You're not going to pitch to Bowser. Even if it's going to give you a run, you're not going to pitch to Bowser. Then you have Bro. Then going against Bro with a 25% power boost, you're probably walking Bro too. It's more than likely Bro's going to get a home run. Like, it's well worth it to walk Bro in that scenario. And that's 3 people on from just one hit. So this character, that's also a little scary too, because this character's bat isn't the most consistent thing in the world, and you're relying on this character's bat a lot to get these characters runs. But if you do get a hit with Bowser Jr., it's crazy important. That's why I have him in borderline meta, is because you're going to see him occasionally, you're going to see him work occasionally. A lot of times you're not. But there is those scenarios where I think he's viable. And his next character, where I'm going to get some heat from this, but this is where I think Wario deserves to go. This character, I think, only deserves to be picked when you have DK, Yoshi, Birdo, and Pink Menace picked already. And usually you're probably going to get 2 of those in the drafts. And if you don't, then you're going to pick Wario. His singles bat is pretty okay. Him in the infielder, I think, is overrated. I don't think his coverage is actually that good. I think Yoshi covers so much more. I think DK, Birdo, Yoshi cover literally so much more in this character, in my opinion, just because the speed, I think, well, his speed is still pretty good, but the dive, I don't know. I don't think this character covers, he's definitely, I'd say, the 4th best infielder in the game with an okay singles bat. And, whereas these characters, Yoshi's just different because Yoshi's so much better than everyone else. It's crazy. DK's got a really good star swing, a really good bat, and laser, and Birdo has got a decent star swing, like a really good star swing, and covers more than Wario. Wario kind of doesn't have the best arm. Wario kind of covers a lot, but these characters do it too, and they have so much better strength than Wario. Wario is just worse than these characters, and you're probably gonna put Pink Menace in the outfield too. Wario has slightly more coverage than Pink Menace, but you're probably not, I don't know. I would rather have Pink Menace in the infield than Wario by a decent amount. And it might seem really weird to put Wario 2 tiers below Pink Menace, but I think the laser is really important. Maybe I could move Wario up here. But the thing is I just don't find myself using him as much as I do with these characters. These characters, I'm at least picking, Mario Drybun is going to be on the team almost every game. One of these 2 characters is going to be on the team every single time. One of these 2 characters is going to be on the same team. I see Wario get picked in 10% of games. I don't think his value is still pretty good, but just where there's just better options, and it's kind of hard, It's kind of there's going to be more characters coming up where they're still really, really good, but there's just kind of better options available on these next couple characters. And speaking of that, we got Daisy. Now Daisy's weird because Daisy is okay at every single position in the game. Daisy can play every single position in the game mediocrely. That's kind of hard because she can't play a position well. In the infield, she's okay. She's, viable if in really dire situations. In the outfield, she's okay. Not the best. You can kind of hide her there in center. Probably not anywhere else. In the first and third, can kind of hide her. Pitcher can kind of hide her. Catcher can kind of hide her. She's not a terrible weakness in the field, but she's kind of a weakness in the field. But her bat is pretty good. Not a ton of people are comfortable with her bat. Not a ton of people like her bat. But the people that are comfortable with her bat, are really good with her. For a while, I felt like she had the best singles bat in the game, and I was hitting 700 with her. Obviously, that's anecdotal evidence. I haven't gone through and tracked every single time. But she felt like she was the best singles hitter in the game for a while for myself. Just because I was, pretty comfortable with her. Having that mid-low, or that mid-mid trajectory, really, really important. Your singles bat is very, very good, and it's not, I think it's underrated once you get comfortable with her bat. she's really, like, her bat is really, really good. Like, top 5, top 10, in my opinion, in terms of singles bat. So that's why I have her in borderline meta, is because if you're comfortable with her bat, she could probably go down a little bit more, but if you're comfortable with her bat, she's an okay option to hide if you like her bat, which, you know, if you like, can be kind of worthwhile. So that's why I think she's borderline. Moving on, we got Waluigi. This character is also kind of there. Maybe, I would say maybe I might just do this already and put like Waluigi like right there. I think Waluigi's a little bit better than this. Waluigi's like, you know, probably the 4th best pitcher in the game, I'd say. Hold on. His pitching's pretty good. Like, it's not something to laugh at. He can, if you're not used to it, his charge pitching style can be really, really, like, hard to get used to. If you've not played against it, it's going to be really hard. Like, you're not going to have a good time. His pitching's pretty good. His batting is, again, if you have Yoshi, he kind of shuts down Waluigi. Because if you put Yoshi at shortstop just for at that time, he has to push the ball, and the ball's going to be pretty low. It makes it really, really hard to hit with Waluigi. Like, his bat's awful if you have to hit with him. Or if you have to hit against Yoshi. But if you don't, his bat's not terrible. It's not the worst in the world. It's okay. He's going to get good contact, like, almost every single time, because his stats are actually bonkers. But the power isn't quite there, so I'm not comfortable. I don't like his bat that much. It can work. His pitching can work. If you don't want to deal with a monkey on your team and you have Yoshi, then I think he's viable. I think he's borderline. Really, if you have Yoshi on your team, I think he's a viable option as a 9th pick pitcher. That's where I think he's at right now. Moving on, we got Toad. Toad is weird. Dude can hit dingers. He's the best home run hitter in the game. That's not true. But his bat is okay, and he's a solid outfielder. I don't think he's as good as Luigi or Toadette. I think he's slightly worse than those guys. I think he's worse than Mario. But he can work. He's not, if you need that extra outfielder, he's not a bad guy to go for. He's not the worst in the world. His bat's okay. He's pretty fast. He's pretty okay in the outfield. He's just kind of an okay character. Moving on, we got Goomba. This character's weird. He's a weird pitcher. I do not like his bat at all. I don't think his bat's very good. It's weird, though, because I feel like his bat is a little bit more RNG-ish, where I think this is all skeptical, but I think his bat either goes pretty far or is either a grounder, and so that's why you don't really get that same, like, mid-low trajectory problems where the ball can't get out of the outfield or infield. It will either go out of the infield or be a grounder, which is, like, again, purely skeptical, but that's just kind of what I've noticed with him. So his bat is okay. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's something you can't rely on. And for pitching, his pitching, I think, is also okay. I think you can kind of have some fun with him. That's why I put him in borderline, not non-meta, because his pitching's weird. His charge pitch is pretty solid because, it's just so much it's an awkward release angle, and you have so much curve on it. But I don't think it's as good as, I think if everyone used Goomba every single game, he'd get more dominated than Boo or Diddy or Dixie is right now. So that's why I have him this far down, just because I also don't like his bat that much. But he still can be used sometimes. That's why I think he's in borderline. And then moving on, we got Big Bean. This is for you. I wish I could place him higher, but this is where I got Shy Guy. Shy Guy's kind of like Toad. Slightly better bat, slightly worse outfielder, but it's not by much, and he's just kind of okay. He's not going to add any value to your team, really, but he's not going to be a crazy weakness. He can kind of work sometimes. I could maybe see putting Toad and Shy Guy in a non-meta, maybe, because you kind of really don't need that extra outfielder, but they're there as an option, and you'll maybe see them placed. They're not like an inherent weakness on your team, so, whereas the non-meta characters kind of are. So yeah, that's kind of where I have these guys. Moving into the non-meta, we got Baby Mario. Now, this is kind of weird because normally Baby Mario you see as like bottom three, but I think his bat's okay, pretty solid, and I think that his speed is pretty solid, like or very good, and I think that can add some extra value to where he's a pretty big weakness on your team, but he can also you can kind of have some fun with him, like like with Goomba, to where I don't think he's bottom three in the game. He's still pretty bad. He still pobbles a ton. His dive and his hitbox is still pretty bad. There's a whole kind of stuff wrong with him, but his bat and his speed kind of makes him some fun sometimes. So I don't think he's bottom three. I think he's bottom six. Yeah. Moving in, we got Peach. Peach is weird because Peach is mediocre at everything but doesn't have a good bat. It's basically Daisy with the worst bat. Can pitch better than Daisy, but is it's whatever. That's kind of I think Peach is bottom five just because not really good at anything, but not really ever a reason to use her. But I mean, again, she's not terrible. Moving on, we got Matimu. This character is also weird because he's kind of funny. In the outfield, if you have him in the outfield, you don't want to throw the ball. His arm is pretty bad, but instead of throwing the ball, you kind of you want to run in. Like you want to use his ball dash to his advantage because really outfield is the only position he can play, in my opinion. Because I think maybe catcher if you want to hide him there for the ball dash, but his bat isn't the best, so I don't think that's really worth it. His bat's okay. It's surprisingly long reach, surprisingly long contact. It's still pretty weak though. Gets shut down by Yoshi, Birdo, etc. This is where I think he is right now. He can be kind of used for fun and for shits and giggles, but I think he's kind of an inherent weakness in your team. We got Paragoomba. This is also weird. I feel bad for putting him as the third worst character in the game because I don't think he's actually that bad, but there's no reason to use him. His arm's pretty weak. His bat's pretty garbage. His dive's pretty bad. He's got a decent amount of speed. Maybe could slide him up here. But I feel bad for putting any of these characters bottom three because they're all not awful, but they're not that good. So yeah, just moving on. We got Koopa, which I think is definitely the second worst character in the game. Not really reason to use him. His bat's pretty bad. His fielding's pretty bad. There's just kind of no reason to use him. And then we got Baby Luigi, who is kind of laughably bad. His bat is so garbage. It's awful. He's got speed, but his outfielding, like he's so small. You can't catch a ball with him. He's awful. His bat is so terrible. It's laughably bad. It is not usable in the slightest. But again, it's not like he's terrible. But yeah, this is where my current tier list lies. If you guys have any suggestions or changes or any extra insight to add on, please send some in the Discord or in the comments. But yeah, I would really appreciate that. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you guys later.